Hello everyone. Ungubeko kwamathenjalo, mfana waleka nongoma. We are here as Eating Tank SA sizonithulela our first fresh video titled The Gender-Based Violence Against Women Intimate Partners. So guys, this is our part 1, so you can enjoy it. The part 2, you can find the link to part 2 just down here under the description. There's a link, so just after you're done watching part 1, then you can just go straight to watch part 2. Thank you very much. So guys, ngibingelele ke again. Ngiyabonga ukuthi sifikile namhlanje. I guess njengoba besixoxile ukuthi which topic esoyidiscussa namhlanje, which was gender-based violence, but we didn't want ukuthi sibuke as a whole because inde kakhulu yabo. So we wanted to focus kuma intimate partners, so where umuntu ethandana nomuntu and then agcine ambulalile. So just to try and understand ukuthi yini engakhoza leyo nto leyo, what can make umfana afika kuwena kushela athi uyakuthanda and then kuhamba isikhathi esiyakubulala, yini that can cause that. Mhlambe abanye bathi uyahlanya, abanye bathatha ngileli right just right now nje, bathi abanye uthini lo uthi kwenziwa ukuthi there are people who are sexually active ngalendlela le exakile, so whenever bengayitholi into abafuna uyithola bayifuna ngenkani or something like that. I mean, they have different views amanye abantu, so we just wanted to understand thina ngamunye wethu ama ideas wethu ukuthi thina masibona mhlambe sibona ukuthi one, yini engenza umuntu ade ethe uyakuthanda ebese yakujikela ayakubulala. Two, mase sitholile leyo mbangela leyo. Okwesibili, how can we solve that problem, or how can we prevent, because akusizi ukuthi lokhu sithi mhlambe sithi ababoshwe or akwenziwa ukuthi, but singayi kwi roots yento ukuthi yini eyenza lento le. So yeah, I think that's the best intro engayisho. So I think sesingaqala, I see isandla sazizi is up, so I'll just let her start.
Okay, as you know, because you have me on WhatsApp, I feel like, okay, I have, I guess, the solution in mind, but let me start with the problem at hand. One thing that kills me and that really makes me cringe is men trying to justify murder. I don't care whether umuntu wesifazane was cheating on you. I don't care whether she ubelingane ngaphandle or whatever the case may, whether udelelile or she said no to having intercourse with you, or any of the above options. I think it's just, first and foremost, we need to establish there's no justification to kill anyone. I think we can all agree on that. And then in terms of my solution, I know Geisha, she said it now, but I feel like no solution will ever come from someone from privilege. And let me explain what I mean when I say privileged people. White people are privileged in the sense of racism. Men are privileged in the sense of sexism. So I just feel like no solution will ever come from someone of privilege. Like no gender-based violence will be solved if a man is still in power. That's just my opinion. I feel like the solution to our problem should be men should live under the permits that women live under. Men should have a curfew. Men, like, I guess we've declared it a pandemic in the gender-based violence. I feel like if it's a pandemic and we truly believe this as a society, men should live under the circumstances that we live on a day-to-day basis. Men should have a curfew. Men should be, I guess, like, I feel like they should live under the same restrictions that we do, basically. I think it would start with just having a curfew. After 6. I think that will, I guess, make us feel like we're in a safer space. If there are no men outside, was okay. After 6, I get so therefore that's just me.
Vui?
Okay. So I want to, before I get to the solution part as well, where I believe the root of the problem is. And I think if we are limiting it to just intimate relationships, we're not really doing much justice to the topic. Because it's so broad. Yes, the majority of these things are happening to people who are in intimate relationships, but we also can't put aside abantu besifazane who get killed simply because ungabe ne phone number. That's the first thing. I think it all stems from entitlement. Men are raised in a society where they are, excuse me, where they're given so much leeway. You look at it even when you're growing up as children. Ingane yomfana iyakwazi ukubuya ngo-10, intombazane has to be emagcekeni before the sun goes down. So it has given men a sense of entitlement. Number one, a sense of superiority. That's what society has always done. Now the issue is, I'm not saying the whole spike in this whole issue is because of this, but maybe we're getting more people reporting. In the past it wasn't being reported, but I feel like the biggest issue, we had this as a conversation once, women empowerment event, is that we're getting so many females who are getting empowered, but nobody's is preparing the men for these empowered women. So now men are, in a sense, their power and privilege that they've been given since birth is being intimidated, and they feel threatened by women. Women are now behaving the same way as men have been for a while. Let's take, for example, cheating. It's been in society, umuntu wesilisa can cheat, but once umuntu wesifazane cheats, it's a taboo. But now it's figure to the point where abantu besifazane don't care either. They are cheating, they are doing whatever. They basically don't care about the opinions of men. Umuntu wesifazane akasekho under the motion of ukubekezela, which we've been taught for since sisakhula ukuthi umuntu wesifazane abekezela. They're not doing that anymore. So men are not sure how to react to these women who are empowered, how to react to these women who know themselves so well. So you end up with, I guess, them seemingly losing their power, and this is one of the ways they react. That's just one of the roots that I see it from my perspective, one of the causes of this problem. And in terms of solution, I guess, it would need to go back to family dynamics when these men are being raised. Clearly the system of raising men and women in our society, it's breaking. So it needs to go back to how we are raising our children, which would be our generation. But that's a long-term solution. Short-term solution, I believe, is supposed to be provided by our government. I feel like the reason it keeps going on, every week it's a new name, every week it's a new hashtag, is because the government isn't sending a strong enough message to the perpetrators. If you are a perpetrator and you are unlucky, your victim will trend and you will have a court case in private, and we never know what happens to them unless you are someone who yourself follows the case. The government isn't making a strong enough example of these people. If you are a lucky perpetrator, your victim doesn't trend, it doesn't get the attention it needs, and in most cases they walk free. I've been reading on social media of so many people who, I think it was 2 now that I've read, Oktwa they killed, they went in or something, and then they were told they're first-time offenders and they were let out. What is that? Our justice system needs to be doing more. Like, we need, I think the biggest priority right now, or government, would be gender-based violence units. You know, like you have narcotics, homicide. We need units dedicated to gender-based violence because it is a national state of emergency. And as Uzizi was saying, I feel like she's right to a certain extent. A man in power isn't going to fix this because it doesn't hit home like it does to abantu besifazane. We need it's not like we don't have women in power. She doesn't have to be president. ukuthi akhulume. We also need abantu besifazane who are in parliament positions, who are empowered to be pushing le agenda le, ukuthi sithole more action in solving this problem. Yes, that is just my 2 cents at this moment.
Nonto?
Why is there like an order, first women and then like the men are gonna go last? I'm joking. The way I see this, for me, I've sort of like broken it down to like smaller bits of pieces, and then like I'm going to also then try how these small pieces they then fit together in forming this bigger picture. So first thing that I've noted is mindset. People have got their own different ideas about how things should be. They have like a certain expectations when it comes to things. These things are largely influenced by the environment in which we grow up under. Okay, so you've got people with different mindsets, different opinions, and different expectations. And as people, we are bound to interact with each other. So then now the thing is, when we interact with each other, and then we've got these different mindsets, conflicts are going to arise. So you're going to have your own opinions, my own opinions, and then they're not always going to be the same. So then now, what do we do in a situation where people can't come into an agreement, or like whatever they've been brought up to think? How do you then go about settling the conflict? So, and then there's also culture. So the way in which people, the types of methods that people adopt in trying to fix conflicts. So there are people who believe that in order to settle down conflicts, you have to sit down and talk about things, and then communication is key. You use methods of talking to come to an agreement. And then others believe violence to be more effective than the method of talking. And then you can see this from even with just kids, not just in relationship violence experienced in relationships. You saw how the nation responded. Like parents, they were enraged when this new law that was introduced that stated that parents will be arrested if they are found guilty of using violence as means to discipline their children or for any other reason. And then parents were just like, it was not easy for them to accept that, because they were thinking, how can they say that? Because to them, they feel like using violence as means of discipline, it's much more effective than just talking. Okay, and then there's also what I thought about retaliating. So when people are not in agreement and someone attacks you, if someone attacks you, the way you react in response to the attack will determine what that other person's next move will be, and sometimes even your fate. So by this, I mean that like sometimes it may be the case that women, they experience this violence acts, and the thing is that like also what they do in response to it, it's also the thing that can also contribute to what we actually see as the outcome. So then now when we hear that somebody has died, and it's heartbreaking, but then this thing does not just, not all the time, but then we're specifically talking about the one where people are in a relationship. It won't just, in most cases, hear me, and I don't want to be misquoted and make it seem as if this is always the case where it's like, okay, it starts off as like in small bits. In other cases, it's possible that someone will just be killed out of the blue. But then some victims, they do experience the attacks, and then they do experience the violence. But what they do in response is that they are more forgiving, and they do not take the necessary action in order for the perpetrator to receive punishment. So then now you've got a situation where someone is enforcing their beliefs or expectations. They are forcing them to be like umuntu enze ngendlela leyo yena umuntu afuna ngayo. So naye lo muntu loyo okuyena on the receiving end, like naye indlela enza ngayo, it's like you are committing a crime, but then there is no punishment that you're receiving. And logically, I mean, if I'm thinking about it, I don't see why the other person is not doing what's going to stop them from continuing to do the same act over and over again. So, okay, that's the way that I see it. And then, okay, I feel like I'm gonna run over time, but then the solutions that I was thinking of, and then methods of, okay, so I split the thing up into prevention and also response, because the prevention one, it's like what can we do to stop the thing from actually happening, and then responses that we already have people who have already experienced it or who are even experiencing it now. So how do we help them? So coming up with the solutions is just like the hardest thing that it just seems to me like very hard. But like these are things which I believe could help. And yeah, I'm not sure how much of an impact that they can make. But then what I noted down was that like we should adopt a culture where we try out methods that do not involve violence as means of resolving conflicts. And then we should also change our mindsets. In a world that's constantly evolving, we must adopt an open mind. We must be aware that people share different views and opinions. And also people should not tolerate violent behavior. And then there was a study that showed that women who were not financially independent were less likely to report crimes of violence. So women must be independent, must learn to be independent and not lean on men for financial support, because that seems to be one of the things that make them to keep to put up with this behavior, where they are in a situation where they are experiencing violence and they continue to say, because they're in their mind, they're thinking, oh, if I walk away, then what am I going to do? How am I going to like survive in this world? So having financial support and being independent, it can be helpful. And also a way in which, so the other one, this other one is for response. So once it has happened to, so then for those victims who have already experienced it, how can they be helped? So what I had was, so in this world, you can't be helped if you are not willing to help yourself. So women need to get themselves outside of toxic relationships. There should be a strong, there should also be a strong support structure in place for victims. Yeah, in order to help them to deal with the trauma, and then also give them guidance in the way forward to move away from or to recover from the whole experience. But yeah, like I said, the solutions, how effective they are, like the solution would be for men to stop killing women, but like how is $1 billion question. Yeah, I've already spoken too much.
Yeah, I think okuningi sekushiwo ama-points ami bengiwabekile abaningi sebekhulumile ngawo, but mina makwenzeka izinto mhlambe ezicishe efana lezi, ngiyangithande ukungabi hayi ukuthi angizweli, ngizwe kahle, ngiyazwela kakhulu, ama-emotions nginawo, ngiyazwela kakhulu, but kuyakusize ukuthi ukusolve i-problem. Kuyasiza ukuthi umuve away from ama-feelings, yabo ama-feelings, ama-drugs, uthando. Mina ngifanisa into lezi ziyafana. Once you're under the influence of those three things, decision uyithathayo ayivamisile ukuba yinhle. So uma ngibheka ngokubona kwami ngokuzama because ngizama ukubreak down into ngiyibeke at the angisho ukuthi it's the cause lengizoyisho mhlambe iyona enkulu kunawo wonke mhlambe khona into kwi-state abayibiza nge-correlation like ukuthi into i-affecta kangakanani enye into maybe uma ngathiwa ngiya-estimate mhlambe thothi i-cause yalento engizoyisho mhlambe ngaba 50% or 60 nokunye-ke khona ngokubona kwami one litiphethe the show note lento yokuthi most amantombazane okay mhlambe I'm not correct but most amantombazane awazimele okay avele ngene la hlukumezwayo most amantombazane anale mentality yamantombazane engihlezi ngixabanela namantombazane lento yokuthi wena ufuna ukuthi ethi umuntu mina I'm a girl I must be treated nice ngifuna umfana ozongithengela ukuthi angithengele ifoni angithengele yonke into amantombazane amaningi thothi yena uneliswa ukuthi uma eku relationship ufuna umfana amenzele into ngemali yakhe yabo futhi uzomrentela eflatini uzomthengela ifoni once uhlona lo mfana lona uzorentela ba eflatini so they dependent kubafana once you dependent kumfana you submissive you become his object so noma ngithiwa ungenzani la awusakwazi ukuphuma lapho noma ngithiwa wenzani ngoba dash note uzocabanga ukuthi uma ngimnyeka lo mfana lona le phone izokhokhelwa ba mangimnyeka esikoleni izokhokhelwa ba mangimnyeka eflatini izokhokha ba okay akuyona problem le ihamba yodwa nathi problem ihambisana neyabafana ithi kunabafana abangakhulisekile kahle umfana ongawazi esike saxoxa nomunye umjida sayibiza ngeconsent umfana ongakwazi ukuthi intombazane emayithi no awunawo amandla ngaphezulu kwentombazane noma uthi uyenzela izinto akusho ukuthi sekumele uyitshele ukuthi ayenzeni so unomfana ongafundisekile unentombazane efuna ukudepend emfaneni recipe for disaster so once lo mfana ongafundisekile ongakhulisekanga ekhaya ukuthi intombazane treat her right wahlangana nale ntombazane edependele kuyena engasebenzi khona intombazane engasebenzi ukusebenza afuna ukudependela kubafana une problem so lo mfana akakwazi ukuthi intombazane ithatha kanjani le idependele kuyena so once kwenza inkinga la lo mfana wazi ukuthi nje kumele ayishaya le ntombazane into yakhe angeke iziye ndawo mase kube yisibili lokhuzana because angicabanga ukuthi umfana engavela ashaya intombazane nje asithi nayo intombazane niyathandana well ngisho topic ibroad well ibroad khona athothi bashawa behambela beyestolo okhokho abadala well it's too broad them bengifuna ukubeka la kuleba abathandanayo well mangithi ngiyakuthanda angiboni ukuthi sengathiwa mhlambe ngivela ngivuka kuseni ukufaka induku it really makes sense ukuthi khona umuntu owavela uvuka ekseni washaya intombi yakhe out of the blue angiboni kupossible ukuthi nje ngiyakuthanda sithanda sami woza la khona into ke yenzakalayo yini le yenzakalayo cause sithe angithi umfana akafundisekile and ufuna ukutshela intombazane ayenzeni so kunento ngala kwintombazane ezothi yena athi mina ngifuna ukuzenzela noma ngabe yini manje ashi ithi intombazane mina awuzungitshela ukuthi ngenzeni something like awuzungitshela ukuthi ngenzeni awuzungitshela ukuthi ngiyephi awuzungitshela ukuthi intombazane eyimele sikhuluma intombazane eyimele manje le engancengeli utho kuwena ezokutshela ukuthi mina awuzungitshela ukuthi ngenzeni because angithengile ifoni kanti lo mfana lo une mentality yokuthi intombazane mina vele iyangixhaphaza fanele intombazane ireact ngale ndlela sengicabanga ukuthi into enjalo engenza umfana aza aqala shaya intombazane because yena vele ingqondweni yakhe kwazi ukuthi intombazane object yakhe because ujwayele amantombazane lawo ancike kuyena azela zonke izinto mase ezothola intombazane independent imtshela ukuthi angireport kuwena mina ngiyazenzela into zami stuff like that 2 mase sifika sibuya le ntombazane le ekade incike kuyena uma umfana I think mhlambe uma le ntombazane ekade incike kuwena once yenze iphutha eli1 let's say mhlambe ijole or mhlambe yenze something against your indlela understand ngayo because abafana aba understand indlela ehlukene ku relationship ukuthi mina ngifuna ibe nje so once le ntombazane yakuchithela or yenza something against your will one awufundisekile kahle ekhanda ekhaya kini awufundisa intombazane ehlonishwa and umenzele yonke into once umuntu akuchithela kuzovuka i-anger bese ufuna ukwenzani bese ufuna ukumshaya ngani ngoba vele wena uyamenzela ufila ngazathi ngiyamondla menzela ukuthi yonke lento le and then ugcina mhlawumbe usumbulala. Okay, well, that's my cause engiyibona mhlawumbe. How can it be avoided? Bese shilo uNondo ukuthi we have to empower amantombazane. Sizama ukusiza amantombazane amancane nasakhulayo ukuthi ungathembele emfaneni. Don't ever ukuthi wena ungena ku relationship ufuna ukuthembela emfaneni, or even outside the relationship khona amantombazane ahamba aye endaweni zobumnandi aphethe 50 rand. Uthi uzophuzana namantombazane ayodwa fana atshela ukuthi hawumke uyophuza ngo50 rand uyophuza angithi wenzani lapho uyayisubmita wena ebafaneni uthi hayi no abese ungenza lutho they just want someone to chill with. Khona abafana abangafundisekile kahle ngithi ngiyakhumbula ngisho kanjalo uyothola abafana abangafundisekile kahle bese uba ne-problem. So one thing I think uku-empowerish amantombazane efunda ukuyimela bese sibuya ngile bafana abangafundisekile ngoba de eseshilo naye ama-speakers before mina ukuthi mhlawumbe singasidinge sibuyele emuva ukuthi bekuphilwa kanjani yini lento ebiyenza ukuthi ogogo bebekade bengasebenzi bedepende komkhulu kodwa ama cases okubabulala ebemancane. Cha ngithoka manje ngama lapho ngiyabonga.
Sekuyi hayi ngicela kubeke konke. Yabo le part of analyze ukuthi kahle i-problem ecaused yini. Ngibona ngathi inzima kakhulu because this is a problem esingathi izinto eziningi ezinama weight ahlukahlukene including ngasho nje i-anger management nje kahle can say abantu besilisa ngathi ikhona i-problem ye-anger management nje in general. But for ama-solutions izinto bekadeshe ngivumelana kakhulu nale ukuthi kahle encourage abantu besifazane ukuthi bavule ama-cases for abantu, which is a problem kwesinye isikhathi because uzothola ukuthi lo muntu although ehlukumeziwe kodwa uyamcabangela lo muntu amhlukumezile nakafuna umbone ephelele ejele bane criminal record gcina ukuthi nje impilo yakhe siyaphela. And another thing ebengiyicabanga engadala abantu besilisa balokhuza bathi ukucabanga kaningi before benza something njengokubulala umuntu or ukumshaya nje. Is if singaba na some sort of way yokuba branda as abantu aba-violent. Just so that when uhlangana nomuntu ongamazi se potential partner yakho, you can know ukuthi kahle lo muntu ngabe umuntu violent yini. So if you can say even if umuntu engaboshwanga but if shayela umuntu osifazane o embulele, there can be something like njenge websites kanje which will be managed by amaphoyisa where iya record leon, and when you meet someone ukuthi kahle ufuna ukwazi ukuthi ngabe lo muntu violent and because ukwazi ukumbona usahlangana naye, you can go there and check and ubone ukuthi no lo muntu ngathi seke washaya abantu besifazane 3 times in the past and maybe ngangiseza ukuthi ngidlalele kude naye. And then I think lokho kungakwenza bacabange kaningi because I think ama companies amaningi would take it into consideration before baharish umuntu ukuthi lo muntu ngabe umuntu violent yini. Umuntu violent vele ngeke adingeke in the workplace. So ngathi benza bacabange kaningi before balokhoza benza something. Yeah, but le yokuthi abantu besilisa kuba ukuthi mhlawumbe after 6 kanje abasaphumi, I'll be one of them nje ongayigolozela leyo nto ngaphuma ngenkani. I think say extreme kakhulu le. And khona noke wabeke ukuthi abantu besilisa there's a privilege abayithola nje ukuthi mangabe nezingane ukuthi intombazane ilindele ukuthi by 6 seyibuyile endlini but umfana leyo role ayi-enforceiwe kuyena. I guess nendaba yokuthi vele abantu besilisa bakhula nje ukuthi jwayele ukulwa vele nje, so ngathini akusabisi kuyena ukuthi abe outside. Lento ayenziwa ngoba nakuthi kuhlukunyezwa intombazane ukuthi ingavunyelwa ukuthi ibe selokhuzeni ingabi kubo after 6, so protectwa yona. And mfana kuba ukuthi ngathi asikho ngaleyo ndlela isidingo sokuthi isikhathi siyamprotecta because of vele lifestyle yabafana nje. Yeah, ngingema lapho.
Yeah, zisele sekusiphakeme ngakhuluma.
Like, okay, I have so much to say because unfortunately I was the first to go, ne? And I want to speak to, and I want to articulate myself properly to each and everyone's points, ne? I didn't because your point was the last and it's first in mind. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point, and this is not a personal thing, ne? But I feel like you're speaking from male privilege, and let me explain why. When you say that it's extreme to give men a curfew, do you realize that that is our norm? And besides, that is how I feel for my own safety. That is a prevention method that women have to enforce within themselves. Because if you take public transport, it's no longer safe for me. 2, I need to think 3-4 times about what I'm going to wear. I need to think about that. Now, if men had to live under the conditions that we live under, having a curfew, that is not an extremity. That is a reality for us as women. 2, having to evaluate what I'm going to wear. And if we had to evaluate and give that reality to men, men are no longer allowed to wear baggy clothes because we're afraid that it might conceal dangerous weapons or you might be concealing a dangerous substance. That is not an extremity for us because that is our reality. Like you guys laugh, but this is a reality for us. To say that the bare minimum to prevent such things, if it means implementing a curfew, if it means implementing a dress code for men, if it means implementing like just anything that could make our lives easier as Mujas Fazani, I think that should be done. And it's not an extremity. I feel like when you say it's an extremity, I feel like it's extremely privileged of you to say as men, because these are things that you don't have to think about or have to live through. Do you know what I mean? Secondly, I wanted to speak to the point of rape apologists, and I say rape apologists broadly to explain people abazulana with perpetrators. I think, again, I said this in Ireland, there should be no reason. I don't care whether you're dependent on a man, whether you're financially not stable, whatever the circumstance is. If you're an adult and you're getting into a relationship, you're getting into a relationship with another adult. So that is a consensual relationship that we're now beginning or forming. So ukuthi ngidepende kuwena njengomuntu esilisa ungiqoma noma ungithatha usingene kuleli, you knew my financial circumstances. So to use that against me and to violate me in any means should not be justified. I don't care whether angisebenzi when uyasebenza when ngiprovidele awuyena ubaba wami and omewazi vele situation ukuthi ena ngime kanje. Same thing, even just you're in a relationship with a woman who's empowered or who's educated. I feel like I hate the narrative of men saying, as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as well as a human being, let us not violate each other. Can it not just be that as human beings, as adults, as functioning people with emotions, with feelings, with empathy, with compassion, can we just not violate each other? I don't think there's any circumstance or any scenario we can put in the world for me that could say it justifies or it puts women at a disadvantage or it puts a man in a superior. I guess as human beings, you're a mother or you're a father or you're a husband or a boyfriend. Can we just not violate each other? Don't take advantage of my situation, having known about it or having that knowledge that you know as an intimate partner. And that's just where I stand with gender-based violence. Like, it's a human interaction where men are killing women. it doesn't matter whether that woman was a mother or that woman was a sister or that woman was not financially dependent. She's human at the end of the day, and she was violated by another human. And that's just where I stand on the issue.
Can I go? Yeah, guys, I feel like a lot has been unpacked and will continue unpacking a lot. And this is the trend for such conversations, because I'm sure we aren't the first ones to sit and have such a conversation. We won't be the last ones to do so either. And what I have noticed in the ones that I have seen, the ones that I have been a part of, is, first of all, we want to skip the identifying the causes phase, because we keep saying it's a lot of things, and like Kumpendulo said, it's kuningi. But we fail to understand what that's the most important part. How can you find a solution to a problem if you can't nitpick at all the causes? And maning wanama cause, and we need to be able to nitpick on each and every one of them. And right now, in the Enzagalayo is we nitpick at one cause. Leyo wuti women need to be independent. I have heard this a million times. Women be independent, blah, blah, blah. I've heard it a million times. What we are not doing is asking what men can do. We know what women can do. Be independent. We are constantly teaching women, empowering women to sort of live with this, how to navigate this, but we're not doing the same for men. And Uzis is right of Amadota have always spoken when it comes to gender-based violence. They've always spoken from a point of male privilege, because we always want to identify or what has she been doing wrong. Yeah, but we always want to look at this from Muntesfazane, but not from inside from Labantu Beslis. What are the men doing? You guys, Ninaba, you have friends or companions or acquaintances that umuntu umuzwa ngelanguage into ephuma emlonyeni ukuthi something's off, ukuthi this one, even though angakaze adlwengule or angakaze ashamuntu esifazane, he definitely does have potential to do so. But because in Funuk Vigela scheme or bro code or whatever it is, I'm not a guy, I don't know, but it's something in your mentality that doesn't allow you guys to pick at that man, to call him out. You are quick to call out a woman who cheats, but a man who cheats is man. You guys anikwazi ukukhuzana within your own circles. There's this big question that's always been asked: why is it that abantu besifazane, almost every woman knows another woman who's been violated or raped, but a man doesn't know a rapist? How is that so? Kanti, who is it that is raping the woman? So we've seen it, guys. We can't run away from the fact that sometimes abantu besifazane, and I say sometimes as like big, bold. Yes, you can't as umuntu besifazane uhambe uye eklabhini with the 50 rand uthi uyophuza. You are just you're asking for trouble. You're putting yourself in a situation where you don't know what's going to happen. It might work out well for you. It might not. You don't want to put yourself in a situation like that. You don't want to be dependent on umuntu wesilisa for imani, because you don't know the situation you're putting yourself in. Sure, we've had that conversation a million times. We get it. Women need to be independent. They need to be more aware of the situations they're putting themselves in. Sure, fine. We've said that. Kaning nina bantu besilisa nenzani. What is it that men need to do? You need to be calling out your people, your friends, your laben and bugela phezulu kubona. Call them out for intephume emlonyeni, for example. Why nifuna ukupreserve ama ego ngezinto engasile? nifuna ukupraisana ngezinto engasile. So that's just one of the examples. I think the conversations really, this is a point where it needs to start shifting. We have identified the causes of how women bring it on themselves. How do we change the men? How do we fix the men? Because now we are tired of saying we need to be fixing abantu besifazane, and we're not the perpetrators of this. We're not the ones who are the problem. And abantu abazolungisa nina is the guys who are actually willing to have these conversations. It starts with you guys. And every time you, the helpers, if every time you open your mouth, the first thing you're going to say is a woman needs to stop, then stop doing such and such, then already you're speaking from a point of male privilege. The thing that needs to come out of your mouth, if also sees abantu besifazane, is what is wrong with abantu besilisa? How do I stop that? How do I stop another man from doing this? Not how do I help women not cheat or help women be independent. No, I guess this is the legend because inkinga ignin. That's where the shift in the conversations needs to happen. Yeah, I think I've said enough. What can men do? What must we do about abantu besilisa manje? We've said it for abantu besifazane. Benzani abantu besilisa manje? How do we solve them? How do we?
Well, I hope nu thokozelile our part 1, guys. Please just right after ngiqeda manje go straight to part 2. Njengoba ngishilo ukuthi kwi-description uzothola ilink to our part 2. So make sure that you subscribe right now, you like the page, our Facebook page, you like our Instagram. Every information is here with description so that you will be the first to know once we upload our videos here.